Hi, Reverend Paula Zabkar here, Spiritual Soul Center. We're still in May 31st. Happy birthday to my brother Joe on May 31st, 2020. A lot has happened this last week, and I've been kind of sad, and so I was thinking about sadness, and there's a lot of ways that we try to avoid sadness, aren't there? Because sadness is heavy in truth. Sadness weighs us down. But when we carry it too long and too far, sadness can lead to despair. And that's not someplace we want to go. But I think what this teaches us, and what this maybe presents to us, is this idea that sadness is okay to experience, but not to the point where we become overwhelming. Not to the point where we become overwhelmed by it. To not let it coat with this film everything in our life. To not let sadness do that. It's also important to not stuff sadness down, to not try to bury it inside ourselves. When we do that, somehow in us, sadness gathers more energy. It gathers more energy, and it does color our days, even though on the outside we might not show that sadness. When I was thinking of that line, color our days, it reminded me of a book that was given to me by a good friend a long time ago. And it's a book by Dr. Seuss, and it's called My Many Colored Days. And it's written for toddlers and young children to teach them about feelings, but I think it's so appropriate for today. So I want to share with you this book and these images from a book called My Many Colored Days by Dr. Seuss. Some days are yellow, some are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different colored days. On bright red days, how good it feels to be a horse and kick my heels. On other days, I'm other things. On bright blue days, I flap my wings. Some days, of course, feel sort of brown. Then I feel slow and low, low down. Then comes a yellow day, and whee! I am a busy, buzzy bee. Gray day. Everything is gray. I watch, but nothing moves today. Then all of a sudden I'm a circus seal on my orange days. That's how I feel. Green days, deep, deep in the sea. Cool and quiet fish, that's me. On purple days I'm sad. I groan, I drag my tail, I walk alone. But when my days are happy pink, it's great to jump and to just not think. Then come my black days, mad and loud, I howl, I growl at every cloud. Then comes a mixed up day, and wham! I don't know who or what I am. But it all turns out all right, you see, and I go back to being me. Well, I hope you enjoyed this book. When I pull it out, it's a great reminder, teaching young children how to feel the different feelings, the complexities we have in our life, and to recognize that in this case, in this topic, sadness is a real thing. Sadness is real and raw. Sadness is not a life sentence, though, because we have all these feelings and we have all these complexities that we experience, and we're not destined to be in one forevermore. When you're feeling sad, I think this book reminds us that it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to say, I'm feeling sad. My heart hurts. And that's my experience today in sadness. Equally important is to remember that when people around us are sad, to not try to make it better, to not try to make it joy for some reason in a different way, but to acknowledge, I feel your sadness, I see your sadness, and to not try to fix it. It's a great reminder, this book, that from day to day and from time to time, we experience different feelings. And what it reminded me of as I was thinking about this feeling of sadness is that maybe there's some value in sadness. Maybe there's something there that we can't get anywhere else. And I think that's true, even in those uncomfortable feelings, that there's some value there. Remember that purple dinosaur place of being where sadness slows us down? He's dragging his tail, it's purple. You know, that's an advantage of sadness, I think. It does slow us down. Think about your breathing alone when you're in sadness. It kind of slows the whole world down. Maybe it gives us a different way of looking at things. Maybe a more intimate and sensitive way. Maybe a perspective that we can't have unless we are in that sad place. I think that's the gift wrapped in sadness, because maybe the more important things become more apparent. That when we slow down in that sad place in ourselves, that our view of the world is totally different, and one we must have in order to be whole, in order to feel whole. I think another thing that sadness does is it brings us together. It brings us together in a way that happiness and joy can't. I want to read a short passage from the Book of Joy written with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. Listen to this. Sadness is in many ways the emotion that causes us to reach out to one another in support and solidarity. We don't really get close to others if our relationship is made up of unending hunky-doriness. It is the hard times, the painful times, the sadness and the grief that knit us more closely together. And isn't that true? Isn't that true about sadness, knitting us more closely together? Think about attending a funeral or a celebration of life services, how connected we feel. Think about tragedy and discord, and how sometimes that sadness pulls us together in a way that nothing else can. It reminds us of our common vulnerability. It reminds us of our connectedness. Sadness does that in its own special way, in its own intimate way. I think really sadness is a reflection of love. Think about that for a minute. Think about that for a minute. Think about your sadness being a reflection of love. Because if you didn't care, if you were constantly in indifference, I don't think we'd feel sad. Indifference breeds more indifference, not caring. But sadness, no. Sadness is a reflection of love, of the way we feel about something, of our loss of not having it, of our grief around that. So sadness is a valuable thing. It is something that shows us that we're all in this together, that we're all connected. Sadness does that, and I think that's a good thing. So what can we do with sadness? That's another question I've been asking myself. What is there to do with sadness? Well, a lot of you know one of my favorite authors is Mark Nepo, and I've been reading his Book of Awakening again for the third or fourth time through. It's a daily reader. And I want to read something Mark says about sadness. He says this: just as ginger can lose its bitterness when baked in bread, sadness can be leavened by other life. When feeling the sharpness of being sad or hurt, it helps to take in new things. So when we are exhausted from expressing all that hurt, listen to music you've never heard of, or ask someone to tell you an old story from before you were born, or take a drive down a road near a ridge you've always meant to look out from. Look with your sad eyes on things new to you, and you will give yourself something to do with your sadness. Your sadness then becomes the paint, and the world your canvas. So I say, take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. And think about sadness in this new way. Think about it as an emotion that is necessary to the full evolution of your human nature, of your spiritual nature. that sadness is one in a long line of emotions that we can use to become deeper and more passionate and compassionate humans. That we shouldn't shy away from it, that we don't have to stuff it down, that we can experience it and use it to our highest and best. I hope you consider that as you move through this week ahead. So let's close together as we do at Spiritual Soul Center in this way. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all be well. May all be peaceful and at ease. May all be happy. And may our sadness bring us closer to who we really are, to what is ours to do, and to lift us into a deeper experience of joy and each other in connection. I pray that for all of us, and so it is. Amen.